So good afternoon, everyone. My name is Haley Farber. I'm going to be your moderator for this section. So this section is titled Understanding the Implications of Trauma Among College Students. Our presenter is Dr. Sonia Hunt. She is the Director of Counseling Services at Central State University, and I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Hunt.
Well, good afternoon to everyone. I hope that you all have enjoyed thus far the components of this conference. I know that I certainly have. Please feel free to put your questions or comments or concerns in the chat box, and towards the end, I will be mindful to address them. So we're going to talk about our learning objectives for this afternoon. For one, we're going to define trauma and the prevalence of trauma among college students, and also how colleges and universities can create a welcoming environment and acknowledge feelings of isolation, exclusion that lead to mental health disparities, and also understand and address the mental health needs of diverse student populations. So to start with, for the definition of trauma as defined by SAMHSA, it is the individual trauma results from an event, series of events, or set of circumstances that is experienced by an individual as physically or emotionally harmful or life-threatening, and that has lasting adverse effects on the individual's functioning and mental, physical, social, emotional, or spiritual well-being. And these are some things that I want you to remember. For one, in order to establish safety, we need to ask what helps those people that we serve to feel safe. And the underlying question is not what's wrong with you. It is what has happened to you. And realize that some of the symptoms are adaptations to traumatic events in relationships. Please understand, if you don't remember anything else from this presentation, please be mindful that healing happens in relationships. Healing happens in relationships. So I want you to take a few minutes and look at this image, and you define what it is, and then I'll give you the definition that it's intended to be. So this is a vase or vase, depending on how you pronounce it. And this is the same vase that is broken. So you can equate this to an individual. And here's the individual once they have experienced trauma. And this image could represent the restoration of the initial image, which is this. May not look the same, but yet and still, it is restored to some form. And actually, the gold lining in this, it is a word called kizuki. I don't think I'm pronouncing it correctly, but it's actually the art of restoration using gold. And that has so many implications. And for those of us who are practitioners, we can sort of use this as an example of our interventions with individuals who have experienced trauma, using the gold. The interventions are the gold to help restore them. Now, the prevalence among college students, 66 to 85% of college students have had some exposure to trauma, and approximately 50% have exposure during their first year of college. Black women in college are more likely to face adverse impacts and leave college. And Black students attending predominantly white institutions with trauma exposure are more likely to have difficulty adjusting. Approximately 40% report having a mental health issue. And during the pandemic, 63% of college students reported a mental health issue. And 81% of African Americans with some college experience have had a discrimination experience at some point. Now, I want to share with you all that Central State University is a historically university or a minority serving institution. And I've been here this year. I am going on my 7th year working here. In addition to providing counseling services, I also usually teach the first year experience class. And one of the things that led me to do a lot of research in counseling, during the time that I taught the first year experience, the first 3 weeks I had perfect attendance, and I noticed that attendance started to decrease. And one of the things that was happening was students were leaving college or leaving school to go home to funerals. And towards the middle of the semester, I had a stack of obituaries. And these are things that students brought back to excuse their attendance. And it was shocking to me that here are college students attending funerals at an alarming rate of their peers. And as I looked through the obituaries and saw all these young faces, I was traumatized myself. So I made it a point to get as much information as I could. A lot of our students are from communities or cities with a lot of college exposure. So what does that say for individuals on a college campus? Not the students, but to those of us who are here to serve. How do we serve effectively? So not just myself, but there are other individuals in the campus community who have made this a priority to not just learn about, but to share this with our colleagues so that we can be effective in our service delivery for our student, be it mental health or academically or even health. So I just wanted to give you a little background of the motivation behind it. And actually, my dissertation was based on the traumatic experiences of college students who had aged out of foster care. Now, when we were in Dr. Rivera's presentation, a lot of people brought up he brought up the ACE study, and someone had a question related to that. And the ACE study is the Adverse Childhood Experience Study. And it's a research study that was conducted by Kaiser Permanente Health Maintenance Organization and the Center for Disease Control and Prevention. And in this study, participants were recruited to the study between 95 and 97 and have been in long-term follow-up for health outcomes. And one of the things that was a result of the ACE study was that as the score increases, the risk for health problems increase as well. And one of the things that all of us who work on college campus are aware of, individuals or the young people that we work with, some of these are so prevalent. And one of the things that we talk about here at Central State University is the use of substance, either alcohol or right now, marijuana is the substance of choice. And a lot of times we can get judgmental if we're honest. All of us have been there and criticize the student. And if you're in contact with them, 9 chances out of 10, there are some who may have engaged in some type of use of some substance, specifically with marijuana. During my time, we called it weed, or we called it reefer. Um, and I've heard a lot of comments. I've heard a lot of judgments, if you will, against our students. But here at Central State University, our counseling services, we serve approximately 40 to 45% of our student population. Um, I'm not saying that to toot our horns, but our students make it possible the other students get to us. And we'll talk about that sort of towards the end of it in terms of our response here. Also, the prevalence of STDs. And one of the things that we need to consider, instead of judging them, we need to ask the question, how are you coping? Because sex and substance usage are coping mechanisms for individuals who have experienced trauma. So I just want to encourage you all to make a connection with your students. I wanted to show you this short video.
Hey, welcome back. Today, I really wanted to think about what's the best way to teach teachers about trauma without getting them distracted with all the technical stuff, and what's the most important thing for them to understand and learn. And I thought that the best way to do it might be to just make a difference between a learning brain versus a brain in survival mode. So we'll just call it learning brain versus survival brain. And this is the difference. So learning brain is this brain that's open to learning new information, and it's completely okay with ambiguity and grays and vagueness, and it sees the big picture. It like pulls back and is on the balcony, can look over the forest and figure out what's going on. On an emotional level, people in learning brain feel calm, peaceful, maybe a little excited about what they're about to learn, maybe a little playful and having fun too, and definitely curious. And they're not afraid of making mistakes because it's just part of the learning process. And so they're not really thinking about themselves. And they actually feel a little bit of confidence that if they just apply themselves, they might pick up what they're trying to learn. Now, survival brain, on the other hand, is completely different. It's hyper-focused on threat. It doesn't like ambiguity. It wants clear, hard facts. It thinks in black and white terms. It doesn't want anything to be gray at all. And then emotionally, you can imagine that survival brain makes people feel panicky, feel like a little obsessive and afraid of getting things wrong. And they don't feel calm and open to learning new things. They just want to get things over with. And people in survival brain also really don't like making mistakes, and they are afraid of looking stupid too. So students in survival brain don't want to be picked on. They don't want to raise their hand and ask questions and look stupid. And so these people are also filled with doubt about their own ability to learn stuff, and they're afraid that other people can see how stupid they really are. Now, it's really important to understand how learning brain and survival brain interact, because survival brain always trumps learning brain. And it makes sense because survival brain is just trying to save your life. And so if it thinks that there's something dangerous happening, you better pay attention to it, right? But the tricky thing is that as survival brain stays on longer and longer, it's harder to get out of that. And it's harder to really go into learning brain. And the way I think about it is kind of like the myth of Sisyphus. You know, that guy who has to push a rock up a hill, and then every day it falls back down and he has to do it over and over again. Well, being in learning brain is like being up on the high parts of that mountain. You can see the expanse of what's going on, but it also takes a lot of work to be up there. And at any second, if you're not paying attention and putting effort into it, it's so easy to slip back into survival brain again. And that rock that Sisyphus is trying to push up, well, that's kind of like stress. And the more stressed you feel, the heavier and bigger that rock gets, and it just pushes you back into survival brain quicker. Now, the kicker is that for traumatized people, stress is a really rigid and intense thing. And so with trauma, any little stress makes that rock grow way bigger than it normally would. And because people with trauma misperceive ambiguous situations as threatening and stressful, that rock just stays big all the time. Now, the good news is that the more you control stress, well, the easier it is to be in learning brain, right? Because that rock is a lot smaller. And what I really want to highlight for teachers is that the best way to keep students in learning brain goes back to why I spent so much time talking about attachment. Students best learn when they feel like they're safe and supported by the adults around them. So it's kind of like a baby elephant. You know how like on those nature shows, the baby elephant is like playing with leaves or exploring a tree or something like that and having a lot of fun. And the only reason why they can do that is because there's a whole group of mama elephants around that baby protecting it and looking out for danger. So a kid with trauma or who's stuck in survival brain, it's kind of like that baby elephant who doesn't have protective adults around them. They can't play and learn because they're way too focused looking out for threat and danger. So this is why I really believe that the most important thing that schools need to focus on, way more important than any kind of techniques or curricula, is really whether or not they are creating that environment where students feel like they're surrounded by these big mama elephants who are going to protect them and watch out for them and make them safe. And when students have that, I bet you it unlocks their curiosity, their eagerness to learn, and play as a way to learn. So I hope that's helpful. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments below. Thanks.
Now, let me share this. Watching this video, I've 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 been convicted because I've served as an educator as well as a clinician, and I've probably been between the two for the past over 35 years. And I've also served as a school administrator in one of the elementary school districts. And let me tell you, there have been times that I've looked back and realized that some of the discipline that was opposed was not trauma informed at all. And I've had to grapple with that and wrestle within myself about that. And I think that is probably one of the guiding things that motivates me with spreading the news about the trauma informed approach, not just with young people, but with all people. But when I do the trauma informed approach training, it always come out. So in terms of discipline, you just act like it didn't happen. It's not that, but we need to be informed as we're making decisions. That's the whole purpose, the whole goal behind being trauma informed, because sometimes we re-traumatize. And we see that a lot, especially in education. And we could even go as far as to talk about it in our criminal justice system, but I'm not going to go there because that's not my area of expertise. But we need to be mindful and thoughtful. And one of the things that the questions that I'm going to throw out there this afternoon, regardless of where you're working, are your institutions creating safe spaces for individuals? You don't have to answer that. I just want you to be mindful of that. Okay? Childhood experiences underlie suicide. And if you look at the bottom bar, these are the ACE, the adverse childhood experiences. And you see that with each score, it increases the possibility or the percentage of suicide attempts. So the more ACE scores, the higher the suicide attempt. And we'll briefly talk about historical issues. I don't want to go into a lot of depth with that because Dr. Rivera did an exceptional job, and some of the information that he shared, I have researched as well. So I won't talk a whole lot about it, but this will be available for you to access. But historical trauma histories are complex in that every generation seems to be affected by adversity, mental health issues, substance use, and some governmental agency involvement. Be mindful that untreated traumatic stress has serious consequences for children, adults, and families. It impacts everyone. The connection between historical trauma and present day experiences, related narratives, and health impacts may function as a source of present day distress as well as resilience. And we can see that occurring right now, especially with the Black Lives Matter movement and some of the racial things that have been happening within our communities. There is a such thing as race-based trauma, and it is defined as race-based traumatic stress injury, or simply RBTSI. There's a such thing as microaggressions and racial battle fatigue, which is a concept that I learned about probably about 4 years ago. And race-based traumatic stress involves avoidance, negative changes in thinking and mood, and changes in emotional reactions. Now, we all know what PTSD is. That is really common, but in being transparent, I know as a new clinician, trauma was specifically reserved for veterans. And at that time, I worked in a mental health agency, and that was a common diagnosis, PTSD. But what is emerging now is the race-based traumatic stress concept, and it is the psychological state of suffering from racial violence that results in a cluster of symptom reactions which can significantly impair an individual's quality of life. So basically what they're saying is race-based trauma, it's real. It is absolutely real. I'm working with our student population who are minority students that have been exposed to a lot of racial things happening in their communities. These are things that we have to deal with and we need to be aware of. Symptoms of RBTSI: intrusive memories, just like with PTSD, avoidance, negative changes in thinking and mood, and it can be generational. In dealing with trauma and using a trauma-informed approach, we need to shift our thinking. And again, instead of what's wrong with you, what happened to you? And this opens up for them to be able to articulate and elaborate. When you say what's wrong with you, it's like blaming them for the trauma that they experienced. So remember, it's not what's wrong with you, but rather what has happened to you. And if we consider looking through the lens of trauma, instead of a diagnosis, ask them, what is your story? Why are you here? One of the things here at Central State University, of course, we have to assess and informally diagnose, but we do not place a diagnosis on our students because that diagnosis specifically for African Americans is a barrier. We don't want to be identified with a diagnosis. So instead of what is your diagnosis, what is your story? Why are you here? Instead of what are your symptoms, how have you coped? What are you doing to cope? And a lot of times, this is where we see that a lot of students share that And they will engage in activities which may not be best for them, but they're honest about it. How can I best help you or treat you? That's what you don't need to ask, but rather, how can we work together? Because that's what it's about. It's about forming that therapeutic partnership with the individuals that we serve. And instead of, this is what you need to work on, how can I support changes in your behavior that is going to benefit you? So instead of this, on the right side, those are things that we need to address and ask. And not just that, but this approach allows for the relationship to expand and to build. And remember, healing happens in relationships. And when we talk about trauma, we need to be mindful to include a resiliency focus. Way back when, 35 years ago, when I was in graduate school, it was the strength-based model. And now we're talking about resiliency, and it is an inner capacity that when it is nurtured, facilitated, and supported, it empowers individuals. And as clinicians, this is where we need to look. Everyone has some strength. And it would be very helpful, and it is just urgent that we allow our clients to identify their strengths, support them in that pursuit, because some of them, especially the ones who have dealt with trauma, are just downcast and they may not be able to see it. So we need to be able to journey with them and to encourage them. Resiliency is nurtured by family, faith, and friends. It's facilitated by services, supports, and accommodations, and supported by community education, opportunities, resources, and safety. And here's the resiliency wheel that includes the component control, connection, contribution, and competency. The 4 R's of a trauma-informed approach includes realizing the widespread impact of trauma and understands potential paths for recovery. It recognizes signs and symptoms of trauma in students, families, staff, and others involved with the system. It responds by fully integrating knowledge about trauma into policies, procedures, and practices. And it resists re-traumatizing. And that is so, so important, is that our policies and our institutions are not structured in a way that continually traumatize the people that we serve and those who have had to deal with trauma. And SAMHSA has 6 key principles of a trauma-informed approach: establishing safety, trustworthiness and transparency, peer support, collaboration and mutuality, empowerment, voice, and choice. That is so very important, is to encourage our students to use their voice for their own empowerment, because a lot of them don't think that they have a voice. So we need to support them in finding their voice and using their voice. I'm going to skip a little bit because I'm mindful of the time. For Central State University, our campus-wide trauma-informed approach, first of all, to provide the trauma-informed training for all administrators, faculty, staff, student leaders, and alumni. Everyone needs to be trained on the trauma-informed approach. We have immediate response. We are very conscious not to have a waiting list here at Central State University. We provide services outside of traditional hours. And with the pandemic, and even before that, our health center was conscious enough to make sure that we were equipped with the technology that we need for our students to be able to access us. We have also partnered with some other services to make sure that our students' needs are met in a timely and immediate fashion. In addition to trauma informed, we provide mental health first aid training, again, for everyone on campus. And all of our trainings are free of charge. We provide the QPR, suicide prevention training, and we are research based. And we have to make sure that we adjust. As we're informed and enlightened by certain things, we have to make the adjustments. Please make sure that your interventions are informed, appropriate, and specific, and avoid at all costs re-traumatizing. And please ensure that public safety, judicial affairs have timely and relevant training, because this is where sometimes a lot of the re-traumatization occurs. And it may be because they're just not aware. They're just not aware, and they're trained in certain ways, but we have to, again, have that shift in thinking. Here at Central State, again, we provide the trauma training. We have partnered with NeoMed and NAMI, and also through our partnership specifically with NeoMed, we have adopted a mental health advocate model with our students. They're the advocates, and they're the ones who actually encourage their peers to seek out counseling services. They're the ones who work on initiatives to remove the stigma. And I tell you, it has been one of the most powerful programs that we've had in the 7 years that I've been here. Are our mental health advocates. They work hard, they're very passionate, and they are empowered. As well as being the advocates, they provide outreach services for the campus. Again, we have immediate response to requests for services. And this year we were able to get case management services, which actually triage and sort of disperse the students as they're referred. We do collaborations with our campus safety, and we provide the mental health first aid training every semester, including summer, because we know that during the academic year, it is impactful, but faculty and staff have the opportunity during the summer when it may not be as busy to get the training. And we provide ongoing QPR, which is the suicide prevention training. And we also offer our Safe Zone training, and which is a program to really encourage allyship for the LGBTQ community. And here at Central State, we just started the Vibe support meeting that goes along with our Safe Zone training. And it was developed by one of our counselors along with our mental health advocates, a very thriving program. And if you want more information, just reach out to us. And we also have our resiliency support meeting, which is student facilitated. We were doing it weekly, but because of scheduling, this year we're going to have to be a little bit more creative, but it will still be offered. This past fall of 2020, for the first time in the history of counseling services at Central State University, we did a theater production in collaboration with the theater department, and it was Healing Through Expression. And one of the phenomenal things about this production was there was not a script. Each student wrote their own script, and they performed that script. And I tell you, the outcome from that production was absolutely outstanding. During that time, we were looking at students, the grade point averages, their engagement, and things like that. And we saw students participating that at some point didn't think that they had a voice. So with that, we were able to see students approaching healing, empowerment, using their voice. And one of the things that I've learned working with this generation, because I'm a few generations removed, that's the reality. They are brilliant. They are absolutely brilliant. And if you want to know how to best support them, how to best serve them, just simply ask them. That's all that you have to do. We keep in touch with our students. We give them the platform and the atmosphere to be able to share who they are and what their needs are. You all saw this earlier, I think in Dr. David's presentation, the VAR, validate, appreciate, and refer. We cannot say that enough. And one of the things, be mindful, is not just counseling services, but it has to be a campus-wide approach. And I am ready for questions or comments or suggestions.
Thank you so much, Dr. Hunt, and feel free to stay on to see if there are any lingering questions from folks.
Yes, I will. Alyssa, I really appreciate your comment, and I absolutely believe, and it's not so much a belief as it is knowing that our students are brilliant. I am only effective as much as they teach me. And that's a reality because, like I said, I'm a few generations removed. They help me to be able to serve in the capacity that I do. And they do, they have their own solutions. They've never had the permission to do that. And we need to be mindful to make sure that that happens. Oh, one of my former colleagues. Hello, Miss Kenny. How are you?
I am well, Miss Dr. Hunt.
It's
good
so
to
good
see
to
you.
hear you. Yes, absolutely. And my executive director, or Dr. Karen Matthews, she's on here as well. So, Dr. Matthews, I really appreciate you being here. And what you all don't know, I have technology assistants right next to me. This morning, I could not even get into my computer. So it has been quite a challenge this morning, but I have great help here with me. So, and I appreciate them availing themselves. Also have students who are here with me. And Miss Frances Robinson, our program manager. So thank you all so much. What do you find is most helpful for faculty to understand in responding to students to be helpful to students reaching out of Trauma Mind? One of the things that I've been conscious of, like I said, being a clinician and being an advocate, let me say that, and most of my advocacy has been with young people, and that has not been a challenge, developing relationships with them. But one of the things that has been brought to my attention probably 15, 16 years ago, in order to reach your colleagues, you have to develop a relationship with them too. So I'm very careful with doing that because as we exchange our expertise, we're more open. And it's both ways. It's not just Sonia Hunt being the expert, but I need to hear what is it with them. And it's a lot of times people just don't know. They don't know. And in delivering the and offering the trauma informed approach, I have to be mindful of the approach that I use to do that because I realize that I am extremely assertive. Now that's the nice way of putting it. And yes, I do have a pushy flair to myself that I realize, especially when I'm advocating. But we offer this as a tool for our faculty specifically, not just faculty, but our staff as well. Because this concept for clinicians, it's a part of what we do, but for others, it's not. It is not their orientation. So we have to push it out there. And this year, we're going to do it a little differently. We have provided it based upon requests, but now we're going to just push it out there. This is what's available. It will be offered at this day and time. And we do that with our mental health first aid training. And even during the pandemic, it has been well attended because people really want to know. They want to be informed. And that's the beauty of it.
Hi, Dr. Hunt. My name is Natasha, and I'm really grateful for your presentation. It was very, very wonderful. I'm so thrilled to see that you offer mental health first aid training and wondering, how do you get faculty, staff, and student leaders to attend? We've just started offering that on our campus, and we're trying to, increase engagement in that program.
Yes, Natasha, and thank you so much. So I'll start with our student leaders. It's a requirement for them. We've worked with different departments, student engagement, housing, Greek life. If students are going to serve in a leadership capacity, they have to have the trainings that I mentioned. Now, with faculty and staff, like I said, it's about relationship building, but we don't wait for them to come to us. We go to them and let them know this is what we're going to be offering. But I think this is what makes the difference. This is how it could benefit you, your department, your service delivery. And I think that's what people need to hear. It's not just a training to check off the list, but this is how it could benefit you. And for our campuses to be equipped and empowered, we need this. We absolutely need these trainings, and it should be a requirement on every college. Now, don't you all say that I said that. What's said here stays here, okay? But it needs to be required because we need to be formed. We need to be equipped. We need to be empowered. Every person who works on a college campus, we know the importance of retention.
Absolutely.
These are retention efforts. They're retention focused. So you could possibly present it that way to the administration because that's one of the tools that we use here.
Once faculty and staff and students are engaged in it, they really appreciate it, but it's just getting their interest to sign up for it because it is, it's a long training. It demands a lot.
Yes, it is. This summer, because you know, we had to make the adjustment. I think we did 2 4-hour days. Miss Frances Robinson, our program manager, is actually certified to do the mental health first aid training. And I know for Dr. Matthews and I, in the summer, we had signed up to get recertified, not recertified, but our training had expired.
Right.
And we were both thinking it was the 2 4-hour days, and it was the whole 8 hours. I was done. I was fried because by June, I was zoomed out.
Yes.
I had Zoom fatigue because everything, all of our lives were virtual, and I was just over all of it. And I thought, I'm going to need some mental health first aid intervention here in a minute. But we got through it. And the 8 hours, it is a long time. So you may just have to be creative. We have worked very closely with the Montgomery County Adams Board because they were actually the ones who started the training here on our campus.
Yeah.
And that 8 hours is a long time.
It is, especially online. It's, you know, it's about 6.5, but you have to do some pre-work. But yeah, it is a lot.
But you know what? Let me suggest this. And it was some interventions I used to do when I was in elementary education. Have gadgets and things where people like the figure 8 on the floor, where, you know, especially for those people who have issues with attention. Or have a contest. I think one time we gave an incentive to the department who had the most representation at one of the trainings.
That's a great idea. Yeah.
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 And
yeah,
we all want to win.
We were lucky that we have a grant who's allowed 6 of us to be trained to be trainers, you know.
Oh, wow.
So yeah.
Wonderful. I know Miss Frances would love that because she's the only one on campus right now. But like I said, Montgomery County Adams Board is very helpful and supportive. So they come out and assist us.
Well, thank you very much. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Perfect. All right. Well, thank you again so much, Dr. Hunt. That was a wonderful presentation.
Thank you
for all the questions. And I'm going to go ahead and end the meeting now.
All right. Thanks.